My daughter-in-law thought moving into my place meant taking over my money, my space, and my voice. I didn't beg for respect. I changed the locks, separated our finances, and showed her exactly who owned the house she was trying to control after my husband passed away. Our house in Naperville, Illinois, just felt way too big for me to manage all by myself. So, when my son, Caleb, pulled me aside a few weeks ago looking stressed and asked if he and his wife, Vanessa, could move in with me, I figured, why not? I pictured peaceful Sunday mornings out on the patio, shared pots of coffee, and just being there for each other. But the minute the moving truck pulled up, the entire vibe of the house shifted. Vanessa stood right there in the entryway, arms crossed, glaring at my late husband's favorite antique oak dresser. She looked at it with pure disdain and said, "That outdated thing completely clashes with our aesthetic. It's got to go." Caleb didn't say a word. He just stared at the floor, looking completely defeated, and quietly carried their first batch of moving boxes upstairs, right then and there. It clicked. They didn't see my home as a place we were going to share. They already saw it as their own real estate. Vanessa didn't waste any time, either. She started rearranging the downstairs rooms without asking for my opinion even once. She dragged my carefully tended houseplants down to the dark basement and replaced them with this cold, sterile, gray, concrete decor. It felt like a knife to the chest. But I didn't let myself cry. Life taught me a long time ago that tears don't change reality. I just stood by the kitchen door, watched her do it, and took a deep breath. Caleb was completely under her thumb, nodding along like a robot to whatever she wanted. Later that night, as Vanessa was wiping down the dining table, she looked me dead in the eye and casually said, "By the way, we should probably transfer that home improvement savings account into my name soon. It'll just make managing the bills a lot easier for everyone." She honestly thought a 60-something widow would be an easy target, someone who'd hand over her life savings just to keep the peace. I just gave her a faint smile, walked into my room, and shut the door. In my head, I was already mapping out my first move to set some very clear boundaries. Tomorrow morning, things were going to change, and they wouldn't even see it coming. The next morning, I was sitting at the kitchen table at exactly 7 a.m., sipping my coffee and waiting. When Vanessa walked in, wearing a silk robe, she headed straight for the fridge to start making breakfast, completely taking it for granted. Except the night before. I had taken every single grocery item I'd bought with my own money, carried them down to my private pantry in the basement, and locked the door tight. The only thing left on the kitchen counter for them was a single, basic loaf of bread and a stick of butter. She opened the empty fridge, stared into it in total shock, and turned around to look at me, visibly annoyed. "Where did all the food go?" "Evelyn," she snapped. I took a slow sip of my coffee, looked her right in the eye, and said calmly, "I decided last night that we're splitting the grocery expenses from now on. Everyone buys their own food and keeps it in their own designated areas. It just prevents any misunderstandings." Vanessa's face turned bright red, and her lips narrowed into a tight, angry line. Just then, Caleb stumbled into the kitchen, still half asleep. He immediately picked up on the icy tension and tried to play peacemaker. "Mom, come on. This is unnecessary. We're family." Instead of arguing, I quietly slid a piece of paper across the table. It was a breakdown of the monthly utilities: water, electricity, gas divided up exactly by percentage, due on the 1st of the month. I estimated their share at around $350. Vanessa's eyes practically flared when she saw the number. She had fully expected me to keep footing the bill for the entire house while they hoarded their cash for expensive vacations. She slammed the fridge door shut and stormed out of the kitchen without saying a word. But that was just the warm-up. The most important key to the house was still sitting safely in my pocket. 2 days later. I came back from my weekly grocery run and heard this loud, thumping noise coming from my first-floor master bedroom. I set my bags down in the hallway and walked straight to my room. Shoo. Vanessa was standing right in the middle of it, casually packing my personal photo albums and my late husband's belongings into heavy cardboard boxes. Caleb was standing right next to her, awkwardly holding a floor lamp. Vanessa turned around and gave me this sickeningly sweet smile. "Hey, so we were talking last night, and this room gets so much natural light it would make the perfect home office for us. We figured you could move up to the smaller guest room on the second floor. It's plenty of space for just one person." I felt my heart rate spike for a split second. But I didn't lose my cool, I didn't yell, and I didn't start a dramatic fight. Instead, I walked straight up to Vanessa, took the box right out of her hands with a grip of absolute steel, and set it firmly back on the floor. Then I looked my son dead in the eye and said with absolute certainty, "This room is my room, and this entire house belongs to me. You two have the upstairs. Get out of my private space right now." Caleb instantly took a step back, his face going pale. Vanessa let out a sharp, offended sigh, but under my icy glare, she didn't dare talk back. As soon as they dragged themselves out, I grabbed my coat and drove straight to the Home Depot down the road. I bought a heavy-duty, high-security deadbolt lock for my bedroom door. That very afternoon, I grabbed my old cordless drill and installed it myself, while Vanessa watched from the stairs, completely speechless, when that lock clicked into place with a heavy, metallic thud. I knew I had built my first real fortress, but Vanessa was already scheming behind the scenes, looking for a way to put the financial squeeze on me. In the past, I'd always been incredibly generous with them, taking them out for nice dinners, and even sending Caleb a steady $500 allowance every month to help him get his new business off the ground. But after the sheer lack of respect they'd shown me over the last few days, it was time to cut off the money supply for good. On Friday night, they were hanging out in the living room, talking loudly about a new luxury SUV they wanted to lease. As I walked past, Vanessa called out, "Evelyn, we're going to need you to cover the $3,000 down payment next month. You promised Caleb you'd help us out with the car." I calmly sat down in the armchair across from them, folded my newspaper, and looked at them both. That promise was made back when there was mutual respect and decency in this house, I said, my voice steady and unyielding. "I called the bank this morning and permanently canceled the monthly transfer to Caleb. There won't be any more handouts from me." Vanessa practically leaped off the couch. "You can't do that. We already factored that money into our monthly budget. You have plenty of cash sitting in your savings account. What are you even going to spend it on anyway?" There it was. Her true colors were out in the open pure. Unadulterated greed and a total lack of respect for me. Caleb just sat there like a statue, staring at his shoes, unable to look me in the eye or calm his wife down. I stood up slowly, smoothed out my cardigan, and said coldly, "My money is my money. What I choose to do with it is my business. Your finances are none of my concern, and my savings are absolutely none of yours." I walked into my bedroom, locked the deadbolt, and left them to deal with it. Outside my door, I could hear Vanessa screaming at the top of her lungs, throwing a massive tantrum and taking it all out on Caleb. She was finally realizing she had zero control over me. So, the very next day, She decided to try a different tactic, punishing me by completely freezing me out. Vanessa decided to give me the ultimate silent treatment. She acted like I was completely invisible. She only cooked meals for herself and Caleb. Only did their laundry. And the second I walked into the living room, she'd blast the TV volume to drown me out. She wanted to make me feel like an outcast in my own home, hoping the discomfort would make me pack up and leave voluntarily. But that petty little game didn't work on me at all. I've lived long enough to appreciate peace and quiet, and I've always genuinely enjoyed my own company, instead of hiding out in my room like a victim. I decided to flip the script on my social life, on a whim. I called up my old friends from the local community gardening club and invited them over for an afternoon catch-up right in the main downstairs living room. When Vanessa walked through the front door that Saturday afternoon with one of her co-workers, she ran straight into a room full of women laughing, drinking tea, and chatting around my beautifully set coffee table. The amazing aroma of freshly baked apple pie filled every single corner of the house. Vanessa froze in the entryway, looking utterly paralyzed. She couldn't say a damn thing because it was my table, my china, and, legally, my house. My friends gave her a polite wave, but Vanessa just spun around on her heel and stomped up the wooden stairs to her section of the house. When Caleb came home from work later, he actually sat down with us for a few minutes, clearly relieved to experience a warm, normal environment for once. Vanessa watched from the top of the stairs as her grand plan to isolate me crashed and burned. I could tell she was officially running out of options, and in her growing desperation, she made a massive blunder a few days later, one that finally gave me the upper hand to end this once and for all. Dear Quiet Revenge family, many of you have asked how you can support the channel. The truth is that creating these stories takes time, research, editing, narration, quality control, and careful review. We want to be transparent. AI tools may assist with certain production tasks, but every story is still selected, edited, checked, and prepared by our team before it reaches you. If Quiet Revenge has become part of your daily routine, and you'd like to help us continue sharing these stories, we would be grateful for support equal to the price of a small cup of coffee. Patreon, https://www.patreon.com/Quiet Revenge Family. Ko-fi, https://ko-fi.com/The Family. PayPal, https://www.paypal.com/PayPalme/Khanhuangmin. Most of all, thank you for your kin. One sunny afternoon, I wrapped up my yard work a bit earlier than usual and came inside to grab a cold glass of water from the kitchen. As I stepped into the hallway, I noticed right away that the heavy door to my private home office, where I kept all my important documents, tax files, and my late husband's estate papers, was cracked open. I walked over quietly and saw Vanessa sitting right at my desk. She was frantically tearing through my private drawers, holding the official deed to the house and a copy of my current will. She was clearly hunting for a loophole to challenge my ownership or trying to figure out exactly how much money I had left in the bank. I didn't scream, and I didn't startle her. I just stood perfectly still in the doorway, crossed my arms, and watched. When she finally looked up and saw me, she gasped so hard she dropped the papers right onto the floor. Every ounce of color drained from her face. I was just looking for an old contractor invoice, she stammered. Looking completely caught, I took a slow step forward, picked up the documents without saying a word, and neatly filed them back into the drawer. Then I looked at her with a gaze that was colder than a Midwest winter. "Get out of this room right now," I said in a quiet, razor-sharp whisper. She didn't even attempt to argue. She practically bolted past me out of the room in that exact moment. A major line had been crossed. Anyone who had that much disrespect for my privacy and my personal documents had officially lost the privilege of living under my roof. I didn't need to call the cops, and I didn't need to hire expensive lawyers to handle it. I had total control over the property that very night. I started putting my final plan into motion to set things straight once and for all. The die was cast. I spent the next few days getting everything ready, completely under the radar and without causing any drama in the house. First, I stopped by my local bank branch and changed every single password, security question, and power of attorney form on my accounts, clearing out some old access privileges Caleb had since his college days. Next, I called a local general contractor whose owner had been a close friend of my late husband for decades. I booked a solid crew for the upcoming Monday morning, specifically choosing a time when I knew for a fact that both Caleb and Vanessa would be locked down at their jobs. Around the house, I acted completely normal. I worked in my garden, read my books, and behaved as if absolutely nothing was wrong. Vanessa was totally humiliated after getting caught in my office, so she actively avoided me and wouldn't even look in my direction. Caleb just looked miserable, caught in the crossfire of a situation he was too cowardly to address. He chose to stay silent, so he was going to have to deal with the fallout. By Sunday evening, I was sitting alone on the patio, enjoying the crisp night air. I knew this was the absolute last night I'd have to endure this toxic living arrangement. My plan was completely legal, fully backed by my property rights, and required zero shouting matches or embarrassing scenes in front of the neighbors. I had poured my own blood, sweat, and tears into building this house 30 years ago. Every single brick belonged to me, and I wasn't about to let myself get pushed into the shadows in my own retirement. As the sun dipped below the tree line, I felt an incredible sense of peace. Monday morning arrived, and the crew pulled into the driveway at exactly 8 a.m., ready to remodel the house exactly according to my specifications. There was no turning back. The second Caleb and Vanessa drove off to work, the construction crew went straight to work. I had decided to physically and officially split the house into two entirely separate living units, which the original layout of the house fortunately allowed for. First, they completely swapped out the heavy deadbolt on the front door. Then, at the interior door leading up to the second floor, they installed a solid, heavy-duty exterior apartment door equipped with its own separate deadbolt lock. The crew worked incredibly fast and kept everything spotless. Within a few hours, the job was done. I stood there holding the brand new set of keys, the ultimate symbol of my independence and my unbreakable boundaries. The old keys, sitting in Vanessa and Caleb's pockets, wouldn't open a single door to the first floor anymore. From now on, their only way into their upstairs apartment was via the private exterior staircase that ran up the back of the house from the backyard. I took every single piece of decor Vanessa had moved around downstairs, packed them neatly into plastic bins, and stacked them up on the landing of their new back entrance. My living room and kitchen were finally back to exactly how I wanted them: warm, inviting, and filled with the memories of the life I had built. I brewed myself a fresh cup of coffee, sat down in my favorite armchair, and waited. At exactly 5 p.m., I heard my son's car pull into the gravel driveway. I listened as they walked up to the front porch and heard the familiar jingle of keys. He slid the key into the lock, but it wouldn't turn even a fraction of an inch. I heard them jiggling the doorknob frantically, followed by a confused, hushed whispering outside. This was the moment of truth I had spent days preparing for, and I was entirely at peace. The jiggling at the front door quickly turned into heavy, impatient pounding. I calmly stood up from my chair, walked over, and cracked the door open just a few inches, firmly blocking the opening so neither of them could try to push past me. Vanessa was standing there, her face a mix of pure rage and shock. "What is going on here?" she demanded, her voice screeching. "Our keys aren't working. Did you seriously change the locks behind our backs?" Caleb stood a step behind her, eyes glued to the porch floor. Gripping his briefcase tightly, I looked Vanessa dead in the eye, my voice completely calm and level. Yes, I had the locks changed today, as of today. The entire first floor is my private residence, and you no longer have access to it. Vanessa gasped, looking like a fish out of water. "You can't do this. Where the hell are we supposed to go? This is Caleb's home too." I calmly pointed toward the paved walkway leading around to the backyard. "Your entrance to the second floor is now located at the back of the house via the outdoor stairs. All of your things from the downstairs are already boxed up and waiting for you on your upper landing. We are no longer roommates sharing a house. We are neighbors sharing a property. When you disrespect my privacy and my personal documents, you lose the right to step foot in my space." Vanessa opened her mouth to launch into a screaming tirade, but I didn't give her the satisfaction. I shifted my gaze to my son and said softly, "I love you, Caleb, but I am not going to be pushed into a corner in my own home." With that, I closed the heavy front door, turned the deadbolt, and locked it. Outside, there was instant, absolute silence. They finally realized that throwing a fit was completely useless because the physical reality was unchangeable. A brand new chapter had officially begun. A few quiet months have passed since that day, and the new living arrangement has smoothed out into a stable, predictable routine. Caleb and Vanessa use the back stairs exclusively and manage their own lives upstairs, while I get to enjoy every square inch of my first floor in absolute peace. Vanessa's condescending, power-tripping attitude is completely gone. Whenever we happen to cross paths in the yard, she gives me a polite nod and keeps a very respectful distance. She learned the hard way that my kindness wasn't a weakness, and that I am more than capable of drawing a hard line when someone treats me like an afterthought. Caleb comes down to the patio every now and then by himself to have a cup of coffee with me. We talk about the weather, how his job is going, and swap old stories. Our relationship is definitely more distant now, but honestly, it's much more genuine. He understands now that he is completely responsible for his own life, and he can't just use his mother as a safety net anymore. Most evenings, I sit comfortably in my armchair, look over at my husband's antique oak dresser standing proudly back in its rightful spot in the hallway, and just feel an incredible sense of relief. You don't need screaming matches, petty lawsuits, or massive family drama to take your life and your dignity back. Sometimes, all it takes is a calm mind, a firm no, and the willingness to use your own leverage to protect what's yours. My house is mine again. My peace of mind is back, and I can look forward to the future with a smile. I protected my home not with anger, but with the quiet, unstoppable power of a woman who knows exactly what she deserves. Dear Quiet Revenge family, many of you have asked how you can support the channel. The truth is that creating these stories takes time, research, editing, narration, quality control, and careful review. We want to be transparent. AI tools may assist with certain production tasks, but every story is still selected, edited, checked, and prepared by our team before it reaches you. If Quiet Revenge has become part of your daily routine, and you'd like to help us continue sharing these stories, we would be grateful for support equal to the price of a small cup of coffee. Patreon, https www.patreon.com/quietrevengeFamily, Ko-fi, https://ko-fi.com/historyfamily, PayPal, https://www.paypal.com/paypalme/khanhuangmin. Most of all, thank you for your kin.